November 14th, 2024, 3 a.m. Airspace over the Caribbean Sea, 40 miles north of the Venezuelan coast. A $65 million Gulfstream G650 business jet is cruising at 40,000 feet. There are no official passengers on board, and according to international flight logs, this specific tail number is supposed to be undergoing maintenance in a Houston hangar. Suddenly, on the screens of air traffic controllers in Curaçao, the aircraft's blip begins to flicker. A second later, its ADS-B transponder, the vital device that broadcasts coordinates, speed, and altitude to the world every single second, goes completely dark. The luxury jet simply vanishes into the midnight ocean. Controllers trigger an emergency protocol, fearing a catastrophic crash. What they don't know is that at this exact moment, Coast Guard thermal radars are tracking a heat signature descending at high speed toward a private airstrip hidden deep within the dense jungle. In that moment, they didn't yet realize exactly what they had found. They thought it was a technical glitch. In reality, they had stumbled upon the very first pixel of the dark map, a parallel global aviation system that officially does not exist. When a plane disappears from radar, the public assumes a tragedy, but data analysts think differently. 3 months after the Caribbean incident, an independent OSINT researcher analyzing open-source logs from the ADS-B exchange network spots a glaring anomaly. The exact same hexadecimal aircraft identifier, a unique digital fingerprint known as a hex code, is vanishing at the exact same geographic coordinate 6 times a month. Every single time, the script plays out with surgical precision. The jet takes off from a private terminal in Europe, requests a legal cruising altitude, but as it approaches specific coordinates, its transmitter is cut. 4 hours later, it blinks back to life on the return route, broadcasting completely clean telemetry data. But aviation physics leaves no room for voids. If a transponder is turned off, the physical body of the aircraft still leaves a thermal wake and air disturbance. The researcher overlays official flight plans with infrared heat maps from commercial weather satellites. The result is shocking. While official records show an empty sky, satellites capture dense traffic of heavy private jets. All of them are converging on abandoned military outposts and private estates missing from international registries. The owner of this specific Gulfstream turns out to be a shell company in the Marshall Islands, registered under the name of a low-profile, 26-year-old IT specialist from Eastern Europe. The guy's name is Dennis, and before this, his only known project was running a small cryptocurrency exchange forum. But how did a man with that background end up at the center of an international scheme where a single hour of flight time costs more than his entire annual income? He isn't backed by old money, oil consortiums, or legitimate corporations, but he is backed by an infrastructure that, over the past few years, has mastered moving billions of dollars right under the nose of global financial regulators. And now, that infrastructure needs wings. To understand how an ordinary coder gained access to hidden airstrips across the globe, we have to descend to where this scheme was born, into the digital ecosystem of the darknet, which has officially outgrown its boundaries. To grasp the sheer scale of this operation, we have to rewind the tape. In the late 2000s and 10s, the shadow internet experienced a tectonic shift. The era of sketchy illicit websites that shut down after the first hacker attack was over. Enter Hydra, a monolithic Russian-language darknet marketplace that transformed a chaotic criminal market into a ruthless corporate entity. Hydra didn't just sell illicit goods, it built infrastructure, a dead-drop delivery ecosystem, a distributed network of couriers, proprietary crypto gateways, and integrated exchange systems. While Western competitors like Alphabet collapsed under FBI pressure due to centralized servers and stupid admin errors, this ecosystem grew like a virus. Its annual turnover reached billions of dollars. The system's ace in the hole was the total anonymity of its transactions. Bitcoin was no longer enough for the new digital mafia. It was too transparent. It was rapidly replaced by coin-mixing technologies and privacy-focused tokens like Monero. Money was flowing like a river, but every digital triumph faces one fatal vulnerability: the point of friction with the physical world. Darknet crypto millionaires ran into a wall that encryption algorithms couldn't solve. Imagine having $50 million sitting on an encrypted wallet, but you can't even buy a cup of coffee in Paris without triggering an automated tax audit. Bank compliance became tighter than ever. Large transaction monitoring, proof of funds mandates, accounts frozen instantly. The traditional financial world built an impenetrable fortress. That is when criminal syndicates realized a brutal truth. To legitimize digital billions, they needed their own physical logistics. A logistics network that operated exactly like the darknet. No names, no paperwork, no digital footprints in official registries. A system of distributed servers was about to become a system of distributed airfields. Street-smart hackers teamed up with old-school international smugglers, creating a hybrid threat global law enforcement was simply not prepared to face. The system began to scale at a terrifying pace. This was no longer a story about moving small contraband packages in suitcases. The stakes were now tons of gold, pallets of physical cash, sanctioned microchips, and high-value targets of the shadow economy. But how do you make a massive passenger jet vanish from the international flight tracking system? This is where the first layer of the scheme comes into play: legal ghosts. The syndicate never purchases an aircraft directly. The play works like this. A chain of 5 to 6 shell companies is set up across jurisdictions like Belize, Panama, and Cyprus. The ultimate owner of the jet is a trust managed by a nominee who couldn't even tell you what continent the plane is currently on. But that's not enough. A plane needs an Air Operator Certificate, AOC, a document authorizing commercial flights. To get it, the syndicate exploits a weak link: struggling regional airlines in developing African nations, or fading charter firms in Eastern Europe on the brink of bankruptcy. For a massive cut of the profits, these companies register the jets under their own existing fleets. To international regulators, the plane looks like a perfectly legal charter flight, carrying tourists or mid-tier businessmen. But that isn't the strangest part. The real magic happens once the plane lifts off. This is the second layer: digital camouflage. Every modern aircraft is legally required to use the ADS-B system for safety. But the pilots of the dark map found a loophole. There are silent zones, stretches over oceans or underdeveloped regions where ground-based ADS-B stations cannot capture signals directly, relying entirely on satellites. At that exact moment, the pilots simply flip the breaker to the transponder. On civilian radar screens, the plane vanishes. But to military radars, it remains a physical radar cross-section. How do you solve this? Controlled confusion. The jet flies along a route where multiple aircraft of a similar type are operating simultaneously. At the exact intersection point of their paths, one plane cuts its transponder, while the second changes its digital hex code to match the first. On air traffic control screens, two planes merge into one. One proceeds to a legal destination, while the second slips away into the shadow zone. Where exactly are they heading? This brings us to the third layer: ghost arrivals. They aren't landing at Heathrow or JFK. Their targets are refurbished Cold War strips. In Eastern Europe, these are abandoned military airfields from the former Warsaw Pact, hemmed in by dense forests. In the Caribbean, they are private islands bought up through proxies, where old dirt tracks once used for crop dusters have been widened, reinforced, and paved with state-of-the-art asphalt capable of handling multi-ton business jets. What researchers discovered when analyzing satellite imagery of one of these airfields on the fringes of a small European nation was staggering. A runway that on paper was listed as ruined and unusable since 1991 had been outfitted with modern night landing systems and hidden hangars covered in specialized camouflage netting designed to deflect optical spy satellites. And this is how resources move through the network. The pipeline is brutally simple. Step 1. The digital intake. Cryptocurrency from darknet syndicates accumulates on the organization's wallets. Step 2. The conversion. Through a network of controlled OTCs in Dubai or Hong Kong, the crypto is converted into crates of $100 bills or high-purity gold bullion. Step 3. The flight. The wealth is loaded onto a ghost jet at a private airfield where customs control exists only on paper. Step 4. The integration. The plane makes a ghost landing at a private estate in Central America or a secure compound in Europe. The cash is unloaded and instantly injected into local real estate, shell construction companies, or legitimate tech startups via a network of corrupt attorneys. And this is where everything gets complicated. The system worked flawlessly until the sheer volume of traffic crossed a critical threshold. The Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, FinCEN, alongside Europol, began noticing a bizarre pattern. Small European towns located within a 50-kilometer radius of these abandoned military bases were suddenly seeing an anomalous influx of physical euro banknotes. Local car dealerships, real estate agencies, and land registries reported hundreds of high-value transactions paid entirely in cash. Cash that smelled distinctly of mold and machine oil, a classic sign of long-term storage in underground vaults. Intelligence agencies realized an aviation network was operating completely in their blind spot. The hunt for digital breadcrumbs was on. Every perfect crime eventually shatters against the exact same vulnerability: the human factor. The creators of the dark map were brilliant coders and seasoned logistics experts, but they forgot that the physical world leaves too many analog traces. One mistake changed everything. In the summer of 2025, a Gulfstream flying a route from Caracas to Podgorica made an emergency landing for refueling at a tiny airport in southern Italy. The pilot cited a left engine malfunction. By strict international maritime and aviation protocols, any foreign aircraft making an unscheduled landing outside of its official flight plan must be inspected by local customs. The captain of the vessel attempted to hand the port officials a bribe of 50,000 euros in cash, right there on the tarmac, to keep them from stepping on board. It was his first and final mistake. Suspicious of arms or narcotics smuggling, the Italian Carabinieri locked down the aircraft and forced the crew to open the cargo hold. Inside, they found no illegal substances. Instead, there were 3 heavy-duty military pillowcases. When they popped the latches, even the veteran operatives froze in disbelief. The cases were tightly packed with hardware cryptocurrency wallets, ledger and trezor units, each with a post-it note indicating its PIN code and total balance. One single wallet, investigators later revealed, held over $120 million in Monero. But far more valuable than the crypto was the co-pilot's personal laptop. Cyber forensics teams bypassed the encryption on the device's local cache, uncovering a navigation app the crew used to map out flight paths avoiding ADS-B coverage zones. The pilot kept a meticulous digital diary, actual landing coordinates, the call signs of ground dispatchers within the shadow network, and most importantly, the unique hex codes of every other aircraft participating in the operation. Simultaneously in the US, FinCEN analysts took the data pulled from that laptop and began dismantling the chain of offshore companies. They discovered that the servers coordinating the Ghost Jet's flights were being administered through the exact same subnets used to host mirrors of the largest darknet marketplaces. Digital anarchy had collided head-on with the cold reality of a coordinated global investigation. Law enforcement across 5 nations began tightening the noose around Dennis's infrastructure. October 22, 2025. Europol's Coordination Center in The Hague flashes the green light for Operation Eclipse. It was a synchronized, multi-jurisdictional strike, hitting every node of the dark map at the exact same moment. The primary strike slammed into the retrofitted runway in Eastern Europe, the coordinates extracted directly from the captured Italian laptop. 4 unmarked helicopters carrying counter-terrorism tactical units swept in at low altitude to slip beneath the base's radar perimeter. A ground assault team simultaneously bottlenecked all exit routes. On the tarmac, an active refueling operation was underway for a business jet that had just touched down from the Middle East. The raid was over in 45 seconds. The base personnel and flight crew didn't even have time to reach for weapons or execute emergency data wipe scripts on the terminal management servers. At that exact second in Dubai, inside a luxury apartment high up in the Burj Khalifa, local police alongside FBI field agents arrested Dennis, the nominee owner of the syndicate's stealth fleet. They caught him at his desk, frantically attempting to move the remaining funds from compromised crypto wallets to fresh addresses. Raids tore through 12 locations globally, spanning from Panama to Montenegro. Inside the seized hangars, authorities impounded 7 private jets, millions in hard currency, and server arrays holding the complete, unencrypted client database of the dark map. It was a devastating blow to the logistics of the digital underworld. At a press conference, Europol officials declared the total liquidation of the largest illicit aviation network in history. It felt like the finale of a Hollywood thriller. It seemed like the inevitable end to a brazen empire. But the real shock value came when analysts started digging into the seized servers. The takedown of Dennis's network only wiped out one branch of a far more massive global tree. When independent researchers checked fresh ADS-B exchange logs 6 months after the arrests, looking at the exact same coordinates in the Caribbean and Eastern Europe, they found something deeply unsettling. The aircraft blips are still flickering. They are still vanishing. The technology built by darknet engineers proved far too resilient to die with its creators. The vacuum left by Dennis was instantly filled by new actors, individuals who are far more cautious and far more deeply embedded in the shadows. Offshore jurisdictions adapted on the fly, offering brand new mechanisms for anonymous asset ownership. Law enforcement shuttered one airfield, but the globe still holds thousands of abandoned strips, private lands, and corrupt officials perfectly willing to look the other way when turbines roar at 3 in the morning. Shadow billions still require channels to move, meaning the premium on invisibility in the sky will only skyrocket. Right now, as you watch this, another luxury jet is cruising over the ocean with its hex code blacked out, erasing itself from official human history. Because in this world, when one piece is taken off the board, the game doesn't end, it just moves to a higher altitude.